Revenue Challenge, taking a product from idea, hopefully to revenue in 1 week. And it's the Friday before, so we had been spending the days doing press releases, interviews, and working with the amazing Ellen of Product Forge, helping us set up for our live stream, which kicks off at 8 a.m. GMT on Monday, the 18th of March. So what we are about to show you is our first screen interview of myself and my fellow Zero to Revenue challengers, Ben and Gel. I have to ask for your forgiveness because we kind of just dive straight into it. And because of the day that we've had and because of the time in the evening, we probably don't make much sense for the first 10 minutes of this particular interview. So I just recorded this to say a quick hello, and you will see up next myself, Ben and Gel talk about what we've done so far to prepare for the Zero to Revenue Challenge, what the product idea is, and what we'll be starting off doing on Monday morning. So you'll see Ben give us a few tasks that we need to work on this weekend in preparation for the week ahead. So I hope that you are able to join us on our social channels where we are a Zero to Revenue Challenge, and hopefully most of you will have found our Slack community already, and if you haven't, just give us a holler and we will give you access to that. So that's the place where you will see all the behind the scenes, so you'll have understood that we'll run around like headless chickens all day today, and you'll understand why we seem quite so tongue-tied in the next interview. But I hope you find it interesting. It's 20 minutes introducing you to the beginning of our Zero to Revenue Challenge, and I look forward to getting to know you all during the week. Take care. Bye.
All right, is it on? Is it recording?
Yeah, we're on.
Is it
no,
live?
seriously, we're on.
Oh, we're serious on. All right, well, so hi everyone, anybody who's watching. You see green stuff behind us. Starting on Monday, that's actually gonna be where Ben's head's gonna be for a lot of the time. So you're gonna be like
proposition.
Big overlord just watching over us, which will be fun. But yeah, just wanted to take a second. It's Friday before we start on Monday. We've shared a little bit about what the problem is that we want to deal with, that we're going to try and solve for with everyone. We've done a survey that we'll talk a bit about next week. And we've also done some internal thinking. I just want to kind of set the stage for anybody who's watching. We haven't done any work yet. Like we haven't done any, no development work has been done yet by you, Ben. But we've been thinking about the problem, and we've been thinking about like our draft of what that solution is going to look like. So this week it was about getting this survey out to more and more people. Lizzie, do you want to kind of talk through like what were the questions that we were asking, and what is the customer or the potential customers that we're looking at and trying to go after?
Yeah, so I'm going to do a whole, hi, I'm Lizzie, this is Gelb, and Ben, give us a wave.
First of all, do we think it's fair that there should be 1.5 Gelbs on this show? He's got half his arm on.
Oh, because I'm over there too. We are.
I thought you were saying something personal about him.
Whatever.
Do we think it's fair?
I'm gonna have shaved, and it just looks like I'm gonna have lost a whole bunch of weight.
This is what you can expect for the week. So the week ahead is our Zero to Revenue Challenge, where we're taking a product from an idea to revenue, hopefully by the end of the week.
Thank you.
And we have been doing a lot of thinking, a lot of talking, but not much actually getting nitty-gritty into the work of all until we kick off on Monday. So yeah, your question, Gelb, was
so like, what are we building in terms of what is the problem that we're looking to approach?
So as founders, our experience has been that one area of difficulty is how do we stay in touch with and update our early stage investors. So we wanted to find out, was this a problem for other people? And we went and spoke to early stage founders who had different levels of engagement with their investors. And they might have loads and loads of shareholders or only a few. And we just wanted to ask them, do you update them? How do you update them? What does that feel like? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? And that's the process we've been going through to try and understand what pain points might exist around that area.
And it's important that we're not trying to solve the world. We're not trying to build something for everybody. But at least the original hypothesis was there's this stage of company and there's this type of company and there's this type of founder. and this type of investor that has specific pain points that we think they may be willing to pay to help solve. Do we know that it's a real problem? Well, not really yet. I mean,
this is part of the experiment.
Yeah, we've been trying to experiment with it. So, Ben, from a technical point of view, obviously, this is not like an Envision MVP that we're doing. Can you just talk through, like, from a technical point of view, what it is that at a high level we are looking to achieve by the end of the week?
So I suppose, one thing to frame, first of all, just from an execution standpoint, it has to be on a fundamental level, it has to be a working product. It can't be a prototype that looks glossy on the front end, but as soon as you click, it kind of does nothing on the back end. So kind of our first challenge really, given that we're containing it to 1 week, is to ensure that we are tough on getting the right things done and not wasting time on the things that perhaps turn out to be secondary in terms of priority. Because the downside of that is if we don't focus properly and if we don't focus on the right things, we end up with 3/4 of something that has potential but isn't quite to a stage where we can deliver things. So there are some key critical paths, I suppose, that we can think about here. We've got the kind of the infrastructure and the setup. What are we doing with the database and the web hosting and the server and the routing and all that sort of stuff. So that's almost certainly going to take place on the first day. And then it moves into sort of things like, the email delivery mechanism, because clearly a big part of this or the way in which the founders will communicate with their investors is by creating reports and updates and that being pushed out through email. So that's our main communication channel. If we don't get that bit working, those updates just sort of dissolve into nothing and get seen by no one. So we have to make sure that part is working. And then it's about how does that content all get created? How do the updates get created? How do people invite users, invite investors? How do they silo those teams and those investors into separate rooms, as we'll end up calling them, I think. So there's a lot of these sort of pieces that we have to do. Some of them kind of just core building blocks in making sure we can get data in and data out. And then some of them more value-added, unique aspects that are specific to this project, which we can talk about in a bit or perhaps later on. And that's kind of the challenge, making sure that we do it in the right order so that there's not a bottleneck in some places, but also that we do the right things so that we don't end up on Friday. And that's kind of my main job, is to make sure that we don't land on Friday, have our call, and then realize that we're missing a critical part that renders everything else useless. So, high stakes.
I do think, though, that I fully intend that we will be missing critical parts from a customer point of view. Hopefully, we're going to be hearing from people for whom this may work, this may solve a problem, and we're not expecting to have solved the whole problem by the end of the week. From a technical point of view, one thing that makes the whole thing unusable is just means it's unusable. So it hasn't worked.
Yeah, but I think it goes a bit deeper than that as well. It's unusable in a technical sense is one thing we're trying to avoid, but also from a desirability standpoint, more of a psychological. I'm personally, I know everyone has slightly different views on this in terms of what is an MVP, what is a prototype, what should it strive to achieve conceptually. I personally hate delivering things that don't feel good, that don't look polished to a certain degree. Obviously there's a certain sort of place we can take it in terms of that polishness, but it has to reach a certain standard, and that's something I'll also be keeping a firm eye on. Does it feel that it's reached a quality standard that we can all be proud of, that when we put it in front of customers, they will also see and feel a confidence in?
Yeah, and I guess you're talking about like those typical Envision MVPs or more simple prototypes that goes into the typical thinking of lean startup, trying to do the minimum that you can in order to validate the market and to get people to pay for your app before you build any hardware. And I think it's important that, at least from my perspective, we're not saying that's wrong, obviously, but that's also not what we're trying to get done this week. And I think that I feel like it's more fun. Yes, someone watching might say they're spending a lot of energy building something that they don't know whether or not it'll work, and it's up to us to try and make sure that we're de-risking that as much as possible. But at the end of the day, it's a week, and sometimes focusing the mind and trying to get something out there accomplishes a heck of a lot. And I don't know. I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised what we're going to be able to get done. But I think the biggest issue from the product side is, as you say, like that kind of feature creep getting in there, and then also maybe not feeling comfortable with not being able to deliver everything we wanted to. You know, there's probably going to be one thing that it's going to be like, we need to get this out there. And then we're going to realize we can't do that. And then the decision is that okay? Is that actually good enough, or is it not?
At various points of the week, we're each going to have a certain sort of penchant, if you will, for particular features or ideals in the app. And we're going to have to make tough decisions and realizations that actually, one of them we can have, one of them we can't, and that's just the way it goes. So compromises along the way, probably, but hopefully overall we'll have a real big, beefy, beautiful thing to deliver at the end.
The other thing that I'm worried about, and Lizzie, I don't know if you're worried about this as well, I've told you this before, is like, well, what if the idea is no good? What if people look at it and they're like, yeah, it's not a problem for me. And now clearly there are things that we can do to try and minimize that, which is what we've been trying to do beforehand. But that definitely worries me. So like, you put in all this time, we put in all this time building this thing that we think is great, and it fixes a problem, and that problem isn't actually as big as we thought, you know?
Definitely, I worry about that, but I think one of the things we've been really busy at this week has been interviewing other founders and hearing their stories. And if there's one thing that has been on repeat from all of them, it's been what I thought done looked like is not what done eventually was, or what I thought the problem was to begin with. Definitely what wasn't what I then discovered it was. Definitely customer discovery is an ongoing journey. And so I think as long as we see this in it itself as an experiment, it's a test, we're going to learn not just about what we're creating, but how we're working together, what we're building, what corners we cut and that we can, and what corners we cut and we should never cut those corners again. And I think as long as we think, well, by day 5 or by day 7, what we've got, that's what we're sticking with. We'll know what we've got has hopefully created a huge conversation. We've hopefully found out what much more about where the problem lies or where it doesn't, and then we can iterate. And this is the first build, and then the chance to pivot. And so actually that fills me with confidence.
What do you think is the chance that we're going to build this for a specific type of customer? And I know we're going to go quite deep into how specific that customer is. What do you think is the chance that we get to the end of the week and we realize, yeah, the bones of it, the product itself is really good, but we're going to pivot on the customer and not.
That could be the case. So as an example, it could be, well, these other groups of people need to communicate in that way with these other groups of people, and those two groups are not early stage founders and early stage
I don't think
investors.
we get to see you when you're talking, because it's coming out of my mic. So anyway.
Okay,
well,
right,
yeah. Stick with that.
I'm here. Yeah, so that could be the case. It's something that we're going to have to evaluate. It's like always, are you falling in love with the people that you're trying to solve the problem for, so that you are great at speaking to them, you really go on a journey with them, or are you falling in love with a particular solution, and you're trying to find which deep market that is? Now, for me at the moment, honestly, my interest is in that segment of people. So in those early stage founders and those early stage investors. So I think if we find it's a different problem we have to solve with different technology, then I would be arguing to stick with
But I think as long as there is something tangible at the end, then like you're saying, there is something that you can then make decisions on. It isn't just, hypothesis anymore. It is something real, that even if it gets completely reworked from a technical or product or otherwise sort of standpoint, it is something that can be pivoted on.
Because we're gathering data, right? So we're gathering data of, does the language work? Does the product and the build work and the feature set work? Does the problem that we're solving for, is that actually an issue? So I think you're right, Ben. The whole thing is a chance for us to glean that information to make informed decisions.
And this is kind of the power of what we're, I guess, on an undercurrent of what we're trying to show this week, is that the power of doing and then showing something for it gives you so many more options than you previously thought. You can make decisions based on real things, and that's
because I wanted to ask you about that, like why? Because I can already hear in my mind the people who would argue against your definition of MVP. They're like, what do you mean polished? And of course, there's so many different, like, what's your comfort level with pushing out an MVP? And now I'm going into interview mode, but
there you go.
I really want to hear, Ben, why you think, why is your comfort level like quite high or low, which is the right way there. But why do you think that when you push out an MVP, it needs to be something that works? And is it because you want it to be something that people pay for?
Well, I think, first of all, it is completely and utterly relative to your own standards and everything else, and indeed the industry and what your sort of customer will typically, be comfortable, interacting with and everything else. So different comfort levels and all that sort of thing. But fundamentally, I think as long as, the key thing before you think about quality is having a defined endpoint and a timescale, which is exactly what we're doing in this week. And assuming you have that, it then comes down to personal preference in terms of how you want to execute and then what you feel you can do with it as a result of that. So for me, having now contained it to a week with scope contained as well, it is for me now making sure we deliver the most beautiful thing that we can deliver within that time frame. Otherwise, as far as I'm concerned, there's no point. I want to really excite the customer and not just tease them with something that doesn't necessarily show you the whole thing. For granted, they are definitely two different schools of thought, and I think you don't want to go too extreme. I think on either one of those, you don't want to do something that's completely vaporware, where it's literally just a landing page and doesn't really tell you too much. There are some examples. Buffer is a great example of that, and it can work, but realistically, the majority fail at that side of things. And you can do the other end of the extreme, and I've done this as well with a startup back that I was involved in. 12 years ago, 13 years ago or something. And we spent 2 years building the product. And it was beautiful, but it was completely inappropriate for the customer by the end of that, because the customer had matured, the industry had matured, and it was just so bloated. So, find a sweet spot, but do a bloody good job as a result of it.
This is something I'll be fighting the whole week about trying to be as open as possible, but also just being aware of that, like I definitely care about what people think. And I can already hear people kind of saying, oh yeah, over engineering this, you're not being disciplined with your time, all these things that we tell other people, like this is how you should build a product, this is how you should test it before you do anything. And we are kind of tossing that out the window a little bit. But I think that by giving ourselves permission to build what we think might work, understanding that it might not, and that's okay, and being okay with that, and then trying to de-risk that as much as possible by doing like what you've been doing in terms of talking to founders, talking to investors, and trying to just make sure that the problem does actually exist. I don't think we're going to win any book awards for coming up with a perfect strategy that works every time. But I also think that it's going to be a little bit more exciting and a little bit more fun. And at the end, even if it doesn't work, we will end up with something that we can then use to go through that process with.
I think it's maybe where you come at it from. If you're thinking about this as
have to deal with it.
An individual project or an individual product or a business that's in its own right, then you might feel like, well, where's the beginning and where's the starting point and what we missed? And obviously picking 1 week, and as Ben said, being what's in scope and what's out is really important. But if you thought about this as a growth experiment within a wider organization or wider business, if this was our growth department and we were running an experiment and we were going to set our engineers free to spend a week trying to do this, and we're going to see if it moves the needle, we're going to see what's not.
Fine.
That's completely acceptable, and actually it's what should be done. And you should have prioritized why this particular experiment was the one we're going to run at this time, and that's okay. So I think, I don't know, for me it depends how you frame it.
Just deal with it, Gail. That's what you're saying. Just deal with it. Anyway, well, so just in terms of specifics, to recap, in case you're joining it now, we are building a product next week. We're doing it. We're starting work on Monday. By Friday, we're hoping to get revenue in that product. So that means the product has to work. People have to literally actually be able to pay for it. It needs to have been tested, and it needs to hopefully solve or start to solve a specific problem. Up until now, we've been talking about these types of customers that we're interested in, the early stage angel investor kind of community, and also the early stage founder community, those who have maybe a few angel investors on their cap table, and they're interested in just keeping a lot of other people up to date about their business.
Keeping them warm, right?
Keeping them warm,
Potential
exactly. Potential investors. So for me, the big kind of pain points is engagement. Like, early stage founders have to seek ways of attracting attention in their business and the problems that they're facing, not just from investors that they want to pitch, but the current pool of shareholders as well. So measuring engagement and trying to figure out ways of making sure that your shareholders and the people that you're trying to keep warm are more engaged in a way that isn't in your face, obnoxious, and maybe in a way that builds trust. So Angel, the book by Jason Calacanis, it talks a lot about these regular, simple investor updates in which you're being very honest about how you're doing. And there's no better way to make someone a warmer investor than for them to feel like they know you, and they also feel like they can trust you even if they've never met you before. So these are the kind of things that are swirling around in my mind, and hopefully we can kind of deliver a project to get that done. In terms of what we have to do between now and Monday, Ben, like we have shared, we've talked about a bit of a sitemap. We've also shared like a rough draft of like some wireframes. And I know that you've sent us some feedback on that. What are the kinds of things that you're going to want to do and plan out and make sure that things are in place so that we can start properly on Monday?
So yeah, we certainly need to finalize the sitemap and the wireframes and just make sure that those are nice and tight. And then it's, the things that I'm going to immediately need on the Monday morning are getting these accounts and the server environments and everything else set up. So we need, AWS, we need Stripe accounts set up, we need the logo, we need the brand color, some of the basic building blocks that I can just start using, which will, evolve over the week, but I will need those to get the process started.
Okay, cool.
Taking notes as we go.
Taking notes. We're taking notes. We're doing it live. So anybody watching, by the way, you should be joining our Slack team because we are going to be operating fully out of that. So you're going to be able to see all of this. We have been thinking about logos. We have been thinking about colors. I know that they are quite important for what you're doing, Ben. So we'll be sharing that all weekend as well. If people want to chime in with that. Cool. Awesome.
Yay.
What else do we need?
I think
we need a schedule.
I think we need a schedule. We need input from other people. So continue filling in that questionnaire, our customer questionnaire. Yeah. That's been really, really helpful. Some really cool insights coming through. And that's going to be fuel to the fire for us to debate which angle are we taking this from? Whose problem are we solving? Which one problem? Which one thing? What is in scope and what is not? So that's going to be vital.
Cool. All right. I'm excited.
Awesome. Cool. Let's do it.
Are you off for a movie night, for a family movie night now?
Yeah, just going to watch nothing major. Just watch a cartoon or movie with the kids. Cool. Snuggle on the couch with them, and have a glass of wine.
Okay.
I'll be snuggling one on each hand.
Where's the wine?
Well, on the head, of course.
Exactly.
I got a straw device thing going on.
Alrighty, thanks.
Cool. All right, catch you later, guys. Cheers.